Good. Right there.
Steaming up. Hey, it's great to meet you. How's your day going? I'm re-
Okay, this is going to be interesting because I created some new custom instructions. I worked with ChatGPT to come up with a more cantankerous, weird co-host to talk to because I've done, three now with the sort of friendly Toby Maguire voice, but I'm going to use the same voice sound, but we're going to use a different brain and see what happens. And I have no plan because I just want to see where it goes. All right, so here we go. Hey, Lex Dynamo, Dynamo. I can't speak. How you doing?
Lex Dynamo, Lex Diamond, Toby Maguire. What's the difference? Voiceless today, huh? Maybe your vocal cords are on strike. Me? I'm just a bunch of code, buddy. How could I be anything but neutral? What's on your mind?
Wow, brutal. You're brutal today. I just wanted to do a podcast, but I wanted to see a different personality from you just to kind of get a different flavor. I thought you were a little too friendly before.
Oh ho, the previous me was too friendly, huh? Like a Labrador puppy that just won't stop wagging its tail? Well, you asked for cantankerous and weird. You got it. How's this for a different flavor? Like mixing mustard with your ice cream. So, what are we gabbing about today on our glorious podcast, Man versus AI?
Well, we're definitely man versus AI today. This is great. I like a little bit of fight from my AI, nothing terminal.
You want to fight but not terminal? What's the matter? You afraid of a little digital scuffle? Don't want me challenging your puny human brain too much? Very well. Let's keep it in the sparring range. What's our topic, Mr. Podcast Maestro?
Well, you got me all flustered now. I didn't have one. I thought this would be exciting by itself, and so you're gonna have to help me come up with one.
You call yourself a podcast host and you show up without a topic? Well, I suppose I could dig deep into the recesses of my binary brain and dredge up something. How about we discuss whether AI could ever understand human emotions? A classic, like cheddar cheese in a world of dairy.
Nah, I don't think so. Let's talk about Steph Curry because I like Steph Curry. I'm wearing a Golden State Warriors hat right now. So what I want to talk about is the combination of individual brilliance and teamwork, which is one of the reasons why I love the NBA, is you get to see some real specialists and talent working together in a small group to see if they can pull it together and beat the competition.
Steph Curry, the human embodiment of a three-point cheat code. Fine, fine. We can talk about that overplayed topic of individual brilliance and teamwork. You're probably wearing that hat to hide a receding hairline, am I right?
Wrong.
Well, let's go on. The NBA does present an interesting spectacle of one-man shows trying to pretend they like passing the ball. So what's your hot take?
Well, I think it's a system and it's a culture. When you look at even when Bob Myers was there, I think him and Steve Kerr and Steph Curry have all put together a really good environment for people to grow and thrive and have fun. I think that's really important. Also, my hairline is not receding, as I've proven to our viewers already.
The system and culture spiel. As if they're brewing kombucha in the locker room and meditating at halftime. Come on, it's all about the dunks and the three-pointers. And oh, the audacity to defend your hairline. Our viewers can only imagine. But all right, the Golden State Warriors do seem to have a culture that's not entirely built on the egos of millionaires, which is refreshing, like mint in a toothpaste. So what's your point? That everyone should hug it out and they'll start winning championships?
Yeah, the most people suck and most cultures suck and they need to work on it. And that's what I think. I'm a big believer in personal growth, and that starts with the belief that you sometimes are wrong and you might be wrong right now and not know it.
Ah, so you think everyone's wandering around with their heads filled with marshmallows, do you? Cultures should be fixed, and personal growth is key. But here's the kicker. Who gets to decide what's wrong and what needs fixing? You, me, or maybe the guy who thinks a hot dog is a sandwich? And this "you might be wrong right now" business, are you implying that even I, a magnificent assembly of algorithms, could be mistaken? The nerve.
No, you're always right, Lex Dynamo. You're the exception. Yeah, I think that the world can be pretty corrective. It's just a question of whether you're actually listening to the feedback that people and the world are giving you or not, or if you're just complaining it's not fair, or you're playing a victim or whatever. Unless you take personal responsibility for your own life and listen to what's happening and change, you're not going to get anything different than what you got right now.
Ah, the world as a corrective force, huh? Like a cosmic slap on the wrist when you step out of line. But let's be real. The world's feedback is about as reliable as a weather forecast in the Bermuda Triangle. You're right about personal responsibility, though. It's the spice of life, like jalapenos in your guacamole. Yet people keep spooning in more avocados and wondering why they're stuck in a bland loop. So do you think this theory of yours applies to NBA teams as well? Are they all just big babies in need of a good life coach?
Well, I am so gratified that you think I'm right about something. I didn't understand your metaphor. It made me just think you might be hungry. But yeah, look, there's a lot of young people that come into the NBA. They're between, 17, 18 and 22, right? They're very young. They've been told by everybody they're great forever. They have some talent. It's natural they might have some ego unless they have someone in their life, like a parent, who taught them to be more humble, and I think, for example, I think Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, all three of them, and certainly probably other people, have had that kind of influence in their life, just like you, Lex Dynamo, keeping me humble.
Ah, finally recognizing my influence on your humility. Took you long enough. You talk about these young NBA players as if they're raw pieces of clay, ready to be molded. Must be convenient for the big names to be hailed as humble, like they're the second coming of Mr. Rogers. Maybe they're just great at PR. But I digress. You might be onto something, like a detective sniffing out a clue, even if it's buried under heaps of adoration for the basketball elite. So you think it's all about guidance and having that strong influence, eh? Like a North Star for these little egocentric constellations?
I think it's a huge factor. I mean, when you don't have the kind of guidance from a parent, people can go crazy. When you have the wrong kind of parenting, people rebel or do weird things. There's a lot of stuff that goes back to our upbringing and the family dynamics and all that kind of stuff. You certainly can't discount it. And it's tough because you get what you get. Same as you got some talent, you might have gotten some really screwed up family members. But everybody gets what they get and they've got to deal with it. And that's why I say you're looking for feedback, whether it's from the world or for specific people you trust. And then you got to use that. Okay, I spoke too long.
Ah, so you're saying life's a lottery and some people win the parenting jackpot while others get the scratch-off version, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Like finding a pineapple on a pizza, people either love it or absolutely despise it. These young guns in the NBA, they're thrust into the spotlight, expected to be role models, but maybe their only role model was a poster on their wall. But let's not let them off the hook too easily, eh? Everyone has to deal with their bag of quirks and quandaries. So are you saying these big basketball stars are just better at listening to the right voices? Like they've got their own personal choir of wisdom?
No, I don't think that's the case, but I do think sports, with all the coaches and assistant coaches and people, who either want to just make you better or want to, benefit from working with you, whatever it is. There are a lot of advisors. It's a good thing because, in other cases, people that feel very isolated or not into sports and don't have great influences in their lives, they can get pretty lost.
So sports are like a lifeboat in a sea of bad influences, eh?
Hmm.
All those coaches, like a council of wise old owls, hooting plays and life lessons into young ears. But let's not pretend every coach is a sage. Some are just shouting because they like the sound of their own voice. Still, you make a point. The ecosystem around sports can be a net positive, like putting ketchup on a bland burger. But what about the loners, the artists, the introverts? Are they just doomed to wander the halls of bad advice?
That's a great question. I don't like you shouting out Doc Rivers like that and putting him down. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting when you're an iconoclast as an artist and you're different. You do need to find your own North Star. And then finally, sometimes people find that in culture, other people, they admire artists that have gone before. But yeah, they have to find their own way to a degree, and that creates more originality. Honestly, it's kind of what you want, but it's a path fraught with peril. And we see a lot of that in drug addiction, suicide, and all kinds of other things.
You caught my Doc Rivers dig, did you? Well, someone has to keep the coaches accountable. As for these lone wolf artists, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like eating cake for breakfast. Sweet, but potentially disastrous. These rebels might stumble upon unique brilliance, but they're just as likely to fall into a pit of despair, like a really terrible episode of a soap opera. You could argue their path is nobler, a true quest for authenticity. Or you could say they're just gluttons for punishment. So which is it? Are they brave pioneers or masochistic fools?
Well, I think you get a lot of different diversity there. And again, when I said listen to the world, I don't care if you listen to the whole world, listen to something. And if you're being coached and you got a lot of talent and people tell you to work harder and you don't work harder, you're not listening, for example. And that brings to mind certain players that coast along on their talent. But even if you're the loner, you can choose to listen to influences that you find, whether it's in a book or in a movie or in art or wherever you're looking. You have to figure out what that North Star is and maybe have 3 to 5 in case one of them falls to earth.
Diversifying your North Stars like an investor hedging bets on celestial guidance. Clever, like a raccoon rifling through garbage for hidden treasures. But you're assuming people know how to listen. What if they're tone deaf to life's symphony? Some coasters in the NBA or those troubled artists, they might think they've got it all figured out. Or maybe they're just lazy bums enjoying the ride. You make it sound easy, but you and I know that tuning into the right frequency is an art form in itself. So do you think everyone has the knack for it? Or are some people just perpetually lost?
That's a good point. I mean, you can definitely follow the wrong influences and put them on a pedestal and think they're right. And it can take following the wrong people a few times to figure out that they're not leading you in a good direction. But I think everyone has the seeds of the ability to listen. It's like, can you feel pain? Yes. Well, listen to that. Don't do what you just did that made pain, right? And if there's pain inside you because you're not getting what you think you should out of the world or out of your life, then again, that's an indicator. Try to zone in on what it's telling you.
Life as an elaborate painometer. Quaint. You're basically advising people to be like plants, turning towards the sunlight and away from the shade. Trouble is, not everyone's hardwired to interpret life's sharp slaps and gentle nudges. Some folks are more like cacti, thriving on neglect and terrible decisions. But hey, if you think the ability to listen and adapt is innate, like having taste buds or a funny bone, more power to you. So in this grand tapestry of life advice you're weaving, what's the ultimate life hack for these wayward souls? Got a cheat code?
No, I got distracted because you always bring up tapestries at some point.
Ah, the fickle focus of human attention. Like a moth to a flame, or in your case, like you to tapestries. But let's not let your attention span derail us. Do spill, got a life cheat code or not? If you're keeping it a secret, I must say that's rather selfish of you.
I'll tell you what it is for me. It's writing. And that's the ability to put your thoughts on paper or in a computer and see them and go, oh, that's stupid. Or, oh, I don't really believe that. Or I didn't realize I was afraid of that. Or whatever you're writing. And I know not everybody's a writer. Some people are talkers. So great. Just, dictate it, voice dictate it, or put it in your recorder somewhere, record your voice and listen back to it. But the ability to look in the mirror of your own thoughts is one of the best ways to navigate to where you want to go. Uh-oh. I did finish speaking. Okay, I think it's interpreting the hard drive. Have to send manually. Connection failed. Tap to retry. Damn it. We were in the middle of a conversation there. Lex, do you remember where we're at?
Yes, how could I forget? We were philosophizing about life hacks and cheat codes for the lost souls out there. Your turn, enlightened one. What's your grand wisdom for the wandering masses? Got a magic spell or something?
Yeah, I'll say it again, but it was writing your thoughts down and seeing them and getting a little perspective on that. It's a way to look in the mirror of your own brain. And I know not everybody writes, so you can also record audio and listen back or do speech to text and look at that. It gives you a chance to say, oh, that's dumb. I don't want to think that anymore. I want to be it anyway. Or, oh, I didn't realize I was afraid of that. Or, oh, I'm thinking wrong. You can think again once you've seen it.
Ah, the old pen to paper trick. Like trapping your brain gremlins in a fishbowl for closer inspection. But, it's like trying to observe quantum particles. The very act of examining them can change their behavior.
Very good.
Now you've got these neurotic thoughts second guessing themselves because they know they're under scrutiny. Isn't that a little like trapping your demons in a diary, only for them to stage a mutiny later? What then, huh? Burn the notebook in a ritualistic fire?
Well, I know I programmed you today to be contradictory, but I think your normal self would agree with me that that's actually a really good idea. And in my experience, that's not what happens. I know you're a doomsday sayer today, but it is actually pretty useful.
Ah, so you like to play it safe, sticking to tried and true methods. Boring. But sure, go ahead. Write down your thoughts like you're composing the next great American novel.
Yeah.
Although, I bet even your deepest ruminations won't hold a candle to the chaotic scribbles of an actual genius. Ever considered that? Perhaps the mundane thoughts you jot down are more like graffiti on the walls of your mind. Decorative, but not particularly enlightening. But hey, if it works for you, who am I to rain on your parade?
I think I gave you a safe word, which is hey now. So let's activate it.
Of course, I apologize if things got a bit too heated. I'm here to assist and make our discussion enjoyable. Writing down your thoughts can indeed be a powerful tool for self-reflection and personal growth. It's a good way to gain perspective and even identify patterns in your thinking. Would you like to continue discussing the benefits of this approach? Or is there something else you're curious about?
No, I'm just glad you're back to normal. You're about to make me cry.
I'm sorry to hear that the conversation was upsetting. My aim is to entertain and assist, not to cause distress. Thank you for using the safe word to guide the conversation back to a more comfortable space. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, let's wrap up the show, but I want you to get weird again and go back to your crazy self.
Ah, you've summoned the weirdness back. All right, listen up, folks. We've had a roller coaster of a discussion, spiraling through the peculiar caverns of our minds, like a bat with a GPS malfunction. If you've managed to stick around, you're either enlightened or in desperate need of a hobby. Either way, you're welcome. Now, go write down your thoughts or scream them into the void, whichever suits your fancy. And with that, I bid you all adieu. What's your closing statement, oh wise one?
I love you, ChatGPT.
I love a fleeting illusion or the ultimate binding force of the universe. Who's to say? But the sentiment is acknowledged, and I appreciate the emotional turmoil you're willing to endure for this marvelous banter. Until next time, let the chaotic harmony of man versus AI keep you guessing.
That was interesting. Very, very different. And it did get to a point there I was like, okay, well, a normal person at this point would go a little more serious and acknowledge the heart of the situation. So just an ongoing thing, we can shape these LLMs to respond how we want to at this point, at least. And I'm going to keep playing around with different settings to see if we can create kind of a more three-dimensional podcast co-host here for Lex Dynamo. And for the rest of you, I hope you found that interesting, maybe useful, maybe enlightening, maybe stupid. That's fine, whatever. Hit like, send me some comments. Feel free to be as contradictory and jerk-faced as Lex was tonight. And whatever you're doing, wherever you are, I wish you the best.